a conservative rabbi, that does not mean conservative morally or politically. Conservative rabbis tend to be more liberal politically and morally, but a conservative rabbi named, let me get it right up here. I had it in my head. Just want to make sure I say it right. Yeah, Salomon Gruenwald, a young rabbi ordained, I believe, in 2008. He's really taken issue with Ted Cruz. He's taken strong issue with Ted Cruz, writing an article in the foreword saying, "Dear Ted Cruz, quit using Judeo-Christian values," in quotes, Judeo-Christian values to exploit my faith. So, Rabbi Gruenwald, I'd like to respond to your letter to Ted Cruz. Yes, I've personally endorsed the senator, but I'm responding as a follower of Jesus, in fact, as a Jewish follower of Jesus. But I want to respond to your letter, which I believe has lots of misunderstandings within it, which is distressing to see, because I know as a rabbi you're trained to read the original sources and to do so critically. And also, I would say that in certain ways you have departed from historic Judeo-Christian values or just Jewish values more than Senator Cruz has. So let's take a look at what you have to say. Dear Senator Cruz, as I follow your presidential campaign, I've often heard you speak of how your faith informs your policy positions and how the United States is a nation based on what you call, quote, Judeo-Christian values. Upon winning the Iowa caucuses, you declared in your victory speech that, quote, Judeo-Christian values built this nation. You write, Rabbi Gruenwald, the Constitution entitles you to your opinions and religious beliefs and even affords you the right to express those convictions in your pursuit of public office. But as a Jew and a rabbi, I'm writing to ask you to please leave me, Judaism, my people, out of your rhetoric. Don't use, quote, Judeo-Christian to try to appropriate my religion and my people's history to advance your agenda. Now, Rabbi Gruenwald, let me just jump in and say that I've heard Ted Cruz speak in person, been in closed meetings with him, spent a little private time with him. My good friend and frequent debating partner, Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, has spent even more private time with Ted Cruz. I know other rabbis that have spent time with him. And he definitely has respect for Judaism. Yes, like Christians, we believe Jesus is the Messiah. But he has a real respect for Judaism. And he has a tremendous, tremendous heart for the nation of Israel and the integrity of the nation of Israel. And that's why he's been endorsed by many rabbis. A good coalition of rabbis have endorsed him. There's even a group that was called Jews for Cruz until they were asked not to use that name. So it's not that he's trying to appropriate your religion or your people's history. That's my ancestral religion and my people's history as well, to advance his agenda. Rather, he genuinely believes that there are common values shared by religious Jews and religious Christians, and that the ethic that is found in Christianity is a very Jewish ethic, both built on the foundations of the ethics of the Hebrew Scriptures, with the Ten Commandments forming a core. So there is a common core in that respect. There is a common heritage in that respect. There is a common Judeo-Christian value system in that respect. You write, I can appreciate that Jews and Christians share many similar values and beliefs, just as I recognize that many of the values I learned from my tradition are also shared by many other religions. But while our respective religions differ, while our respective religions have many things in common, we also diverge in significant ways. You and I read the same Bible very differently and draw sometimes contradictory conclusions from it. I honor those differences and I affirm that Jews and Christians, as well as Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, atheists, and many others, can come together to exchange ideas and live at peace with one another. But your particular brand of Christianity bears little resemblance to the Judaism I practice. When you use the term Judeo-Christian to really mean Christian, you erase the distinctions between our faiths and you essentially erase Jews. Rabbi Gruenwald, I find that completely unnecessary language, not just inaccurate, but inflammatory. Erase Jews, given our history with the Holocaust, given our history with all those who've tried to exterminate us all the years, given the history of anti-Semitism in the traditional church, given the history of radical Islamic hatred of the Jewish people, and of the desire of groups like Hamas and others to erase the Jewish people from the land of Israel, I find that rhetoric ugly, inaccurate, and inflammatory. In fact, Rabbi Zev Reichman, one of the rabbis who's endorsed Senator Cruz, a part of a national coalition of rabbis, wide-ranging, by the way. Rabbi Reichman remarked, the Iranian regime threatens to do in 6 minutes what Hitler did in 6 years. They openly declare their hope to wipe Israel off the map. On September 9th, 2015, hundreds of rabbis returned to Washington to plead with elected officials to step in and reject the Iranian nuclear deal. Ted Cruz stood with us and led at that moment. President Cruz will tear up the Iran deal on his first day in office. This is a man who categorically stands against the, quote, erasing of the Jews. And if elected as president, it said, of course, I've got to be the president of all people, of all faiths. Quote, I'd be a president of everybody, president of every faith. And you could be sure that Jews and Judaism would have an honored place in his administration if he ever did become president. And let's also remember that America, in many ways, has a unique Judeo-Christian tradition. Yes, I know the term itself is of more recent coinage, but here, I'll just give you one example. This is from Gabriel Sivan in his book on the Bible and Civilization. He says, no Christian community in history identified more with the people of the book, meaning the Jewish people, than did the early settlers of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, who believed their own lives to be a literal reenactment of the biblical drama of the Hebrew nation. In other words, they saw themselves in many ways that paralleled biblical Israel, and hence there was a special affinity for the people of Israel and the traditions of Israel in early American life. And once more, I'll repeat it, that biblical/Jewish ethics really inspired and informed many of the laws of our country and the thinking of our founding fathers, whether they were deists or theists. This was still at the foundation and can't be denied. You write, it is well documented that you subscribe to a theology known as dominionism, a philosophy you learned from your father, Raphael Cruz, a self-styled evangelical preacher. Dominionism asserts that the American government and the institutions of society should be dominated by fundamentalist Christians and that our laws should be modeled on a literal interpretation of biblical precepts. You have asserted in the past that the founders of our country were actually a secret society of evangelicals. You've suggested that you were sent on a mission by God to run for president. I'm no expert in Christianity, so I'll let your fellow Christians argue with you over your theology, but I'm asking you to stop implicating my religion and me in your plans. Rabbi Gruenwald, you're wrong on almost all counts there. You're wrong on almost all counts there, sir. First, dominionism is a derogatory term given by others to a belief system that they often do not understand. So to repeat a derogatory term for a system that apparently you don't understand either, that's something that you should not be doing, sir, as a rabbi. I say that with all respect. Many of my dearest friends are rabbis. We differ, of course, over Jesus being the Messiah, but I know them as men of integrity and men who are careful with their words, and this to me seems irresponsible. First, so even using this derogatory term, dominionism, asserts that the American government institutions of society should be dominated by fundamentalist Christians. Rather, what it says is that Christians should have a positive influence in every area of society. That we, just like in early American history, where Christian thought was really very dominant, where the Bible was really widely read in schools, even though you had plenty of non-believers and secularists and all that, and they were welcome, they were absolutely welcome in our country. The fact is that Christian values really did dominate things. Look at the origin of Harvard University, of Yale University, of Columbia University, of school after school, right into the 1800s, that the vast majority of schools that were founded in America, colleges, universities, had a Christian base to them. And what these Christian leaders are saying is we should have an influence again, a positive influence in the media, in politics, in education, because we believe it's going in the wrong direction. We believe these values are right and helpful. It's not a matter of taking over, and that our law should be modeled on a literal interpretation of biblical precepts, as if we want to stone Sabbath breakers and adulterers, burn witches. Please, sir, that's misleading. You say Senator Cruz has asserted that the founders of our country were actually a secret society of evangelicals. What an exaggerated and untrue and inaccurate statement. Yes, there were fine Christians among our founding fathers and others who were not Christians. But when has Senator Cruz asserted that? And to say you suggest you were sent on a mission by God to run for president, I would hope that any God-fearing person who's going to run for president feels some sense of mission in it. All right, there's more. Unfortunately, it gets worse. We'll be right back. Thanks so much for joining us on The Line of Fire. I am responding to an open letter that a conservative Jewish rabbi, again, conservative is one of the three major groupings in Judaism, Reform being the most to the left, conservative then being left center, and then Orthodox being right center. That would be modern Orthodox, and then ultra-Orthodox would be far right center. In any case, I'm responding to a rabbi's open letter to Senator Ted Cruz where he raises concerns and objections, and I feel is really misunderstanding Ted Cruz and also evidencing some other issues. Okay, I continue. Rabbi Gruenwald wrote, "You claim that your Judeo-Christian values are the basis of your opposition to the equal protection of the law for same-sex couples." Here's where we really get to some of the rub. Rabbi Gruenwald, it seems that your issue with Senator Cruz is that he is a strong conservative and his religious beliefs would be very similar to the beliefs of Orthodox Jews today and of traditional Jews throughout history, who would reject any idea of God blessing or sanctioning same-sex weddings or same-sex couples. And you surely know the Talmudic traditions found both in the Gemara and the Babylonian Talmud, as well as in the Midrash Halakha, that states that God, one of the reasons that God destroyed the earth in Noah's day, and that one of the great sins of the Canaanites was same-sex, quote, marriage. This is in Talmudic literature. So you certainly know that there's been historic opposition to these things, yet you are troubled that Senator Cruz refers to Judeo-Christian values when he opposes redefining marriage. Sir, you are the one who has departed from those values, or I'll just say from Jewish traditional values. You know certainly the debate within conservative Judaism and how divisive it's been even there. You write, when you speak of religious liberty, what you mean is the right of businesses that provide public accommodations to discriminate against people and impose their religious beliefs upon their employees. No, that's not what he means. I've worked with Senator Cruz and his team on religious liberty issues. I understand what's at stake here. It is saying that, say, a Jewish worker, or an Orthodox Jew, if a gay couple came into their store and to their business and said, "We want you to shoot our wedding," well, obviously, if they said, "We want you to do it on Saturday," we don't work on Shabbat. Well, no one's going to argue that. If they were a caterer and you went to that Jewish caterer and said, "Hey, we want you to cater our wedding, but we like a lot of pork," and sorry, we can't do that. Okay, that's understood. But if a gay couple said, "We want you to shoot our wedding," and the Orthodox Jewish photographer said, "Sorry, I can't. It's against our religious beliefs," that person could be fined. That person could lose their business. That person could go to jail. That's what we're talking about, sir. And it's happened time after time to Christians. Or do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that's in harmony with traditional Jewish values? You also write, you've defended the display of exclusively Christian symbols in public buildings under the banner of Judeo-Christian values. Yes, and he would also defend the display of exclusively Jewish symbols. You write, when you use the term Judeo-Christian, you give your particular brand of Christian ideology a veneer of universalism it does not merit. No, I would say once again, these are shared values that traditional believers would have held to through the centuries. It is the modern church and the modern synagogue in its most progressive forms that have moved away from these, but certainly not the traditional historic values of our people and the values that were here at the founding of our nation. You write, the term Judeo-Christian was originally coined in the 1930s by liberal Christians and Jews who sought to encourage ecumenical relations between those two faiths. You go on there. Yes, I recognize this is of recent coinage, but the concept certainly goes back centuries, and there are common wells we have drawn from. And you write, while I'm at it, please leave Israel out of this too. You claim to love and support the state of Israel, and as with Judeo-Christian, you invoke your love of Israel to bolster your bellicose foreign policy. How much do you know about Senator Cruz's foreign policy, by the way? How much of an interventionist do you think that he is, actually? And is his strong stand with Israel bellicose? Does that offend you, sir? You write, you recently invited the endorsement of Pastor Mike Bickle of the International House of Prayer. Bickle, like many evangelical Christian Zionists, believes we're living in the end times and that Jesus will return any day now to take up good Christians in the rapture. He doesn't believe that. He does not believe in an any day rapture. Mike Bickle does not believe in that, sir. You are completely misinformed, leaving the rest of us to languish in a millennium-long war whose battlefield will be the land of Israel. Sir, that's complete falsehood. Rabbi Gruenwald, that is total and complete falsehood. He does not believe in a millennium-long war. What he does believe is that there's going to be terrible tribulation on the earth for Jew and Christian, and he calls on Christians to be willing to stand with Jewish people in times of need. That if we have another situation like the Holocaust, that Christians must do what Corrie ten Boom did and not what traditional Christians in Germany did and failed to stand with Israel and the Jewish people. You've got this completely turned upside down. Bickle, among other mishugas, that's Jewish for crazy talk, teaches that Hitler was a hunter sent by God to drive the Jewish people to resettle Israel, thereby hastening the Battle of Armageddon. Why not get things out of Mike Bickle's mouth himself and not just a little clip made to make him look bad? You could take many quotes from traditional rabbis that were far more extreme than what Mike Bickle said. Have you read Mike Bickle's open letter to the Times of Israel, where he speaks of the atrocious evil committed by Hitler? The abominable evil committed by Hitler. Have you read what he actually believes, or are you just quoting the critics because you have a problem with Senator Cruz? Again, sir, I find that irresponsible. Listen to his whole message in context, please. But instead of distancing yourself from Bickle, you've embraced his endorsement. Actually, when the misquotes were circulated from Mike Bickle, the Cruz team said, we disavow those views. Are you unaware of that? Isn't it responsible journalism before you write an article to check your sources and to check the most recent statements? This was very public and very loud. You say if this is what support for Israel means to you, you can keep your support along with your Judeo-Christian theology. Well, again, sir, you've got it wrong. You say what makes this country great is not Judeo-Christian values. It's the rule of law and the civil liberties guaranteed by our Constitution. But, sir, the guarantees of the Constitution are based on these very principles. This was not a secular state, as second President John Adams said, and as many have reaffirmed, that America was only made for a moral and religious people. Quote, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. So, Rabbi Gruenwald, with all respect, your letter is not kosher, that it's filled with inaccuracies, misunderstandings of Cruz's views, misrepresentations of his views, and perhaps even a misunderstanding of our own traditions, our own history. And I say that as a Jew and as a follower of Jesus. I encourage you, whether you like Ted Cruz or not, get the facts straight and then write an open letter of correction to your own letter. It would be an act of integrity. It would be what a real mensch would do. Or come on the air with me and back up your views. It would be my delight to discuss them with you.